Come on, big gold belt. Come on, y'all.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another recap review show here at Big Gold Belt Media as we're getting ready to jump into season 2, episode 7 of Bel-Air. This episode is titled Under Pressure. It is Adversary. It is I, Nigeria. It is our special guest, Little Adversary, here getting ready to break this entire episode down. Hello, gorgeous. Welcome to Big Gold Belt Media team, and she's ready to take over and put us both out of a job, and that's okay. But anyway, y'all know what it is. We're still catching up. We will have episode 8 ready for you soon as it drops. You ain't got to worry about that one, but we have got to talk about episode 7 because man, I'm going to keep it 100 before I even get into the whole spiel here. Adversary said this might be the best episode he's seen of Bel-Air, bar none. Listen, I turned it over to you, man. What was it that you was just feeling with this episode, man?
It's maybe it was the pace, or just where we are within the storyline now, because there are so many like subplots going on. But I like watching it, and it's always the case. I don't want to say like they don't do this consistently. They do a very good job of laying out the foundation of whatever the episode is, reeling you in, kind of leading you, taking you on the journey to get you where you need to go. But I felt like with this episode, it was just stepped up a notch or two. Everything was just like back to back to back to back, and like each character's situation that they trying to figure out, it was like boom, boom, boom. This was Aunt Viv, then Uncle Phil, then Will, then Carlton, then Hilary, then back to Viv, then back to Phil, then back to. It was just like back to boom, 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 boom. And before you could even digest, like, oh, this happened or they did this, the next one was coming up. You know what I mean? So I was blown away at the intensity, I guess, the overall intensity of just the episode and where they took us.
Yeah. We will have to go now, all the events of the episode, but I just with that notion though, what character did you feel either most connected with, or you just was most compelled about with their story this episode?
You know what? I would say the Will and Carlton situation kind of took the forefront, but I felt Uncle Phil's whole scenario. I was feeling Jeffrey's whole scenario, and in my man Jazz, because Jazz kind of been playing the back a little bit the last 2 episodes, but here things kind of developed with his situation with Hilary, and I was invested in that. So I felt that too. And we'll get more into it a little later, but that just their whole interaction and the words that were exchanged, I was like, wow, okay. So I was feeling for everybody really. And even and Will especially with Doc, as we'll cover a little later on. But just I was connected, like I would say, with almost all the characters. I was invested in every scenario.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into it then. And we're starting off the episode with Will and Carlton just normally in the house operating as they usually do. But Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil acting very weird as they prepared a breakfast and congratulated them both for their nominations for the Founders Award. And they're both looking at each other like, okay, I guess. But like they're acting hella weird. But the biggest thing is that we understand this is embracing the competition. So the competitive energy is back in the house, which I wrote that in my notes because I'm like, I thought we just learned about this. I thought we just learned from this the last episode at the family reunion about a very appropriate way to handle competition. And instead of them sort of having a conversation about making it a healthy competition, they just kind of like, oh, well, we got 200 the household. Good luck. You know what I mean? And Uncle Phil definitely didn't learn anything from last episode to this episode because he did create a divide in his actions, which we'll talk about in a second. But anyway, now it's the matter of who's going to win. Will it be Will? Will it be Carlton here? But Will said this is going to be a healthy competition. And I said, you, sir, don't even know what a healthy competition is because you have not defined what is healthy for the two of you two. You just, and I mean, honestly, how would you feel if one of your friends was just like, hey, bro, I ain't going to try out or audition or, apply for that. And then next thing you know, you get to the spot and you be like, hey, bro, what you doing up here? Oh, man, they told me it was a good opportunity if I pulled up. Plus, I heard how much it benefited you, so I thought I'd just do it too. And you're going to be like,
right.
Yeah. Oh, nah, bro. It's kind of shady, and I feel Carlton on that. But I understand the perks for Will, and I understand that Will is still very much like a sponge. He's grasping this knowledge from everybody around him, and he's taking a little bit of something from everybody. He's getting from Aunt Viv, he's getting it from Doc, he's getting it from Uncle Phil, he's getting it back from his Philly ways, and I think he makes a little bit of his own input, and sometimes he just makes decisions kind of not always the ones I would make, but it's Will, so he's going to do what he wants to do, because the entire theme of this episode is him reclaiming his power, his ability to stand on his own 2 feet. He does not want to be aided the entire time, which we see that get brought back up in this episode as well too. As he's creating his own way. That's his thing, He
wants to make his own way, and I think this episode illustrates very well why it's important to be completely informed before you make a decision. Because watching it, I wasn't necessarily mad that Will changed his mind. If I'm looking at it, in all honesty, I would say the biggest reason he changed his mind were 2 reasons. A, because he got information that he didn't have prior. B, the information that he didn't have came from someone that he looks up to and that he respects. Yeah. So, you may, same situation. Your man is doing something, you're not really tripping. All right, bro, good luck. Best, do your thing. But you don't have all the info. So there's somebody come and get in your ear. Yo, Najir, if you apply for that job, you could get this. Oh, well, I didn't know that. And those are all things that are that could be beneficial to me that I can use down the line. So now, having all the information, I can make an educated decision. And so maybe it is a good idea for me to try my hand. But I like within that Will, he kept it, like he played by the rules, essentially. He didn't try anything underhanded. He didn't try to go behind Carlton's back. He was upfront. He said, yo, I know I said this. I kind of changed my mind. Is that cool with you? Now, of course, we know it's not, but of course, we also know Carlton is just going to smile and nod. So I think Will tried to, understanding that, navigate that situation as best he could.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed. So they go play golf. Will is clearly behind the curve, but Uncle Phil's like, hey, don't worry. We understand you never did this, but I got you. And G in the background, not really paying attention because he's on his phone and whatnot, which is kind of unlike him, but we know he's preparing for that big moment. Yeah. Aunt Viv gives the call and says, it's time. Are you ready, G? Also, we find out that Uncle Phil is a toss master, and I say, well, what the hell is that? I didn't look it up. Do you know what it is? I don't know.
I don't know.
Good. That's like, y'all can get in the comments. I'm not looking that shit up. I don't care. But anyway, G and the fam, they show up to a diner with Aunt Viv already there, and we meet Frederick, who I've already said is played by Jovan Wade, who you may know as Cyborg in the HBO Max DC, formerly DC Universe show, Doom Patrol, which is done now because of all the HBO Max stuff, but he's been fantastic in it. And again, I've been very much rooting to see him in more projects, and good to see him in this full-blown British accent. Good for him, which was always going to be interesting to see how they were going to play towards that. But yeah, he brings the accent, which
very well.
Yeah. And what's funny is that like Hilary also was
I thought her reaction was priceless.
Absolutely
but it's real like that, and that's what I love about the show. That scene could have been reenacted 1,000 times in real life, and it would have been just like, okay, accent, like it was spot on. It's spot on. And I love when a show is able to capture the cultural nuances of the audience that they're reaching out to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or the audience that they're trying to get the message to. I love how they do that.
Yeah, yeah. So G and Frederick, they have lunch together, and they both sit back and say, you know, just how unreal this is. But there's some other little conversations going on, but Frederick makes it very clear that he's, you know, he has heard things about him, but he needed to find out for himself. So therefore, he has come to America to find out the truth, and I respect that. And I think the truth will set you free. And I also think whatever bit of internal challenges that Frederick is experiencing here, this is a way that should help navigate him to a better future and a better path. And I think that, like, that's such a relatable thing. Anybody who's ever had an absent parent in their life can absolutely say, like, you know, it's the lack of their presence, but there's also the questioning behind it. And then there's rumors and there's family secrets. And if you can just head it face on, would you? Well, yeah, because that's the only way you're going to get all the answers you need. And that's what Frederick's journey is here. And I think a lot of people are going to connect with this character. And obviously, this ain't the first time we've had this story arc.
Okay, I was just going to say, exactly. And we saw what happened when the honesty route wasn't taken. We see how that played out. So
yeah, I'm also very baffled that Will did not ever try to sidebar him with this. I do love what Uncle Phil did, but I'm very surprised that Will didn't take the initiative to try to connect with him about, you know, hey man, I've been there. I know what it feels like. And unfortunately, I didn't have a G. Yeah, but you do.
And that's a very interesting point, really, that you mentioned. That's an interesting point. I didn't even think about it like that. I guess Will probably refrained because maybe he felt like, well, yo, this is G's thing. He got to handle it. And then also,
Will restraining himself. How about that?
Right, at least in that respect, but also with an additional layer being there. Like when he first came to Bel-Air, you know, he wasn't too familiar with everyone, but at least it's like, okay, this is technically my family. I have seen them before. It's just been a while, or we just don't see each other all the time. Yeah. So that's one thing. With Jeffrey's son, it's complete, like, cold turkey. I don't know you from a hole in the ground. So even if I feel like I want to say something to you, I don't know how you're going to take it or internalize it. I don't know if you're going to feel like I'm coming at you sideways or if I'm putting my nose in business where it don't belong. So he probably looked at it like that and was like, let me just fall back and let G do his thing.
I mean, yeah, I guess I have to go with that, but like, it just seems unlike Will to be like, you know what, let me get in there and see what I can do real quick, you know. But hey, it is what it is.
Well, and I was going to say, you're probably going to bring this up next. He had his sidebarring was better utilized elsewhere. You feel me? So that's probably another reason too. He was already sidebarring elsewhere.
Yeah. So Carlton is getting ready for the Founders Award little presentation or little convention or fair, whatever you want to call it. And he says something very interesting as Uncle Phil comes in and says, like, okay, I see you prepping. I see the look you're going for here. And then Carlton says, yeah, I'm going for this Adam Clayton Powell vibe, which if y'all do not know who that is, if you watch Godfather of Harlem, that's Giancarlo Esposito's character.
Oh, that's his character.
Yeah.
That's who is the first. All right, okay.
Who, you know, has the person he's portraying, obviously, real a senator who has made tremendous strides in the educational system in the White House, and a lot of history there. But I thought that was a little bit of interesting tidbit there. But nonetheless, Phil comes in and basically, I'm just going to kind of summarize this a little bit. Basically, like, all right, Carlton, you got it all together. I am going to support Will because, well, he needs it. And Carlton's kind of just like, yeah, makes sense. But obviously he feels some type of way. Yeah. And this is a sort of a balancing of where the two are at when it comes down to the prioritization of and focus of winning this. And while Will has never had to prep, this wasn't a Will thing, as he said. And I think Phil is trying to give him a fair chance. And honestly, if Carlton wasn't in it, I think Phil would still do it the same way. And I think as much as he supports Carlton, as he said last episode, he's proud of him. I think this was right, because what would it look like to make Will get up there and look silly if he didn't have the help and you were right there? Carlton ain't gonna do it. So
it's such a fine line, bro. It's such a fine line.
Oh, it is. Definitely is.
As I was watching, what I took from that whole thing is like the intention is what they say. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So you have a scenario where we're all family. My actions or intentions are well-meaning. I want my nephew to thrive in an area he's unfamiliar with. But sometimes being so focused on the win, you end up creating, collateral damage, maybe unintentionally, on the back end, because it's like, yeah, Will isn't experienced in this and he could use your support, but I'm still your son. I could use some support too. Granted, I understand the logistics of it, but why not stand in my corner just because, you feel me? So it's like when like people, the homie that you have that's just strong, that just handles everything and just walks through fire and don't burn. We don't never stop to check on them people, because we always in our mind assume, oh, he's straight. They got it. They strong. And those be the main ones on the verge of breakdown. But that's how that goes. So I feel like it's the same thing with Will and Carlton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Carlton just kind of is there and just, okay, Dad. All right. Yeah, it's cool. But on the inside, the man is tearing apart.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have Jazz, Will, Hilary, Will playing middleman, and just trying to figure it all out and providing messaging between the two of them. So there's that.
And I love how he did that too. I love
hated it. Mind your business, sir. Mind your business. He had no business doing that. Mind your business. Stay out of it. Just like you wanted to stay out of it last episode. Stay out of it. It's like these two episodes don't have no continuity in one because everybody just forgetting everything they was about last episode. Stay out of it, as you say you were going to, and then you right back in it, middleman it, and not actually helping. As you said, he's utilizing his what did you just say about his he's utilizing his sidebarring skills in a better place. No, he actually would have been better with Frederick than middleman in between these two and passing wrong messages and so on. So there's that. Anyway, we have Uncle Phil and James comes in and just talking about the state of the firm, saying everybody's nervous and we need to bring back the businesses, man. So
so Martin's cousin.
Anyway, Hilary, as she has been doing all season, is coaching Aunt Viv about what to do about the negative press that she's getting. And she's getting these emails from what's her name with Janice, the bad Janice and the bad feedback. And Hilary says, all right, cool, now run the social media and get ahead of this and helping her to use her platform to express what's going on and whatnot. And she's kind of creating an audience and an outlet for herself. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Yes.
Anyway, Will gets to the team. Will gets to practice. And because he is late to practice, he's also trying to find means of balancing the Founders Award fair and practice, and he's late to practice. They're talking about you're late, Bel-Air, but at the same time, Uncle Phil's like, listen, you have to put effort in towards that as well too. So Uncle Phil starting to want to put his foot down about like, hey man, you need to do this. Now the continuity here is Uncle Phil is pro education, and as we learned from last episode, Uncle Phil's brother is kind of like, you have other means of success here. And I think that like, even though Uncle Phil is supporting him, which we'll talk about that in a second, even though he's supporting him, you still want him to take this very serious. And it seems like Will isn't, because he's just mind forward about basketball. But at the same time, Will was very honest about struggling to balance this. And it's new. All of this is new to him.
It is. And I think, again, with Uncle Phil, what you see is what happens in many people's real lives with their parents or guardians or whatever, where your loved ones are kind of living the dream through you, so to speak.
Yeah.
When Will made that call, Uncle Phil seemed a bit more disappointed than he should have been.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's not
Yeah.
like he blew it off completely. It's not like he didn't communicate and let them know what was going on. It was just that, a practice popped up. This wasn't scheduled. You know what I mean? I gotta be here. You know what the situation is with me even being in this program. Let me knock this out and then I'll come do it. And Will, you gotta, and it was almost like Will not being there affected Uncle Phil. You know what I mean? So I think, again, and even with the last episode with the family reunion and the brothers, you're seeing the same thing again, the same narrative of what lengths do you go to claim your victory?
Yep.
And then what happens on the back end after the fact, and you're starting to see those seeds get planted.
Yep. So we get Lisa and Drew, because Drew is trying to get back on Lisa's side, but Lisa's kind of like hesitant about it because of everything that happened with Carlton and whatnot. Will's missing at the founders function, but he eventually shows up late. We'll just talk about that all right now. And when Will is instantly interrogated, when he gets there, Will takes the approach of just being his authentic self, and everybody appreciates that. Also, Lisa is admiring it as well. She definitely has the eyes for that man, but he did leverage by saying, sort of say this is what a true leader looks like,
Right.
I think a lot of other people co-sign for that as well too. But then Carlton takes everybody has their approach, but Carlton definitely has another very political strategy in terms of saying that Obama is his best friend and whatnot. But at the same time, a video gets leaked of Carlton from what we've seen in the very beginning of season 1 of him and his lacrosse team and the white boys getting to say nigga, and Carlton is allowing it, but then they co-signing it, allowing it, and then even defending them against Will, which absolutely makes Carlton and Uncle Tom and everything that everybody didn't like about him in the first season. It's just the band-aid is back off. The wound is the flesh is still showing. The salt that's got poured. Oh, poor Carlton. He's about to go back down that path of post, but like, oh yeah, I remember that guy.
And you know what? Side note, I just always been curious about this. I haven't got an answer. I don't know. Maybe you could answer it for me. If we're at if in any scenario, I guess in a concert, it's probably more passable because it's a concert. But if you in a scenario, you in the car, song comes on, all the homies is in there. 1 or 2 of the homies happen to be white. All y'all rocking to the song. The verse come on, you get to the middle of the verse, the N-word coming up. Does he rap the verse? Does he omit the word? Does he not rap the verse? What do we do? What happens then?
Bruh. I ain't gonna say how old I am, but with a lot of years of experience, I ain't rocking. So when I know that word is coming up, I'm looking dead at him.
You turn it around to see if he gonna rap.
Yep.
I be wondering, like, yo, is it just me or do that? All
right. Yep. And I had a homie, God rest his soul, that tried to pull that one day, and that Bama got 5 fingers smacked, and I said, we good.
I still love you. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So now, it doesn't make it any more passable if, like I said, like y'all at the concert?
Nah, it doesn't give you a pass to do anything. You don't get to paraphrase it. And the thing about it is that, like, first of all, Carlton's all the way wrong. And anybody who's trying to figure out a way to first of all, so Blind Spotting season 2 is coming out, and there's a very important episode. I got to see it early, so review and all that content's going to drop. So Blind Spotting has a very important episode about the use of the N-word and how this works, as they are trying to, the main characters are trying to raise their mixed biracial son. And to understand that like there is literally no acceptable means for a white person to say so. You don't get to quote it, you don't get to say I heard it in the lyrics, you don't get to talk indirectly, you don't get to use a word that has oppressed us for many years and continues to do so now. Y'all get on TikTok, y'all get on IG, this shit's still happening, my G. So you don't get to do so. So Carlton's way in the wrong. It's a learning lesson for him. And all the folks that was taking a part of that, cancel them all, get them all off the team, as they said. Do some awareness and whatever counseling that they do. And that's just what it is. But nah, it ain't no pass. I don't care. You said you get a invite to the cookout, you get a season pass to the cookout, but you ain't getting to say that word. Like it's just not.
Get the platinum package.
Nah, yeah, you get the whole Playboy package. You can get the easy pass, all that, but you don't get to say that word, you know. And that's just what it is. I wondered
about it, like it turned because I was just at a Bone Thugs concert 2 weeks ago. Same thing. There's a lot of white people in the crowd. We know Bone Thugs, legendary group, but we also know songs is laced with the N-word. So it's like they up there rocking. All these white people in the crowd, which y'all not gonna say the word, y'all go. You know what I mean? It's like, and I feel where you're coming from. I definitely get where you're coming from.
Yeah, ain't rocking,
it's
bro.
Just in them scenario, I just be like, how do you react to that? Right?
Yeah.
So like
I listen, it ain't my job to play police out here, play social warrior police. But if you in my space,
I get, and that's the that's the key.
What it is.
I got you.
Anyway, let's get through the rest of this episode because we got more to cover here.
Oh yes.
So we got Phil and Erica as she brings Phil in and presents him to the top of leadership, and everybody wants to meet him. They have a full-blown recruitment package here, and they are so impressed with what he's done at Banks, Johnson, and Lewis that they absolutely know by bringing him in, this will be a good look for everybody involved, and by making him a partner, and they give him an amazing pitch and whatnot, and he has a lot to think about. But we get Frederick and G as they just chopping it up and whatnot, still feeling each other and how that's gonna go. But he comes in, and Hilary's there, and I feel like Hilary's feeling him, but she's playing it off. But that'd just be way too much for this season if they had this thrown that in there. So you had to kind of just.
I think she was just I think it was very surface level because I thought the same thing for a split second, and I was like, nah, the writers ain't about to do all that.
Yeah, that's just way too much to unload for one season, you know. But with that being said, you know, Uncle Phil and Viv, you know, they just want I'm not even talking about that part yet. My bad. But anywho, yeah. So they tried to get him accustomed into saying like, "Hey, you're family, so you know, let me show you around." He's very impressed about this mansion. Didn't know he was living like that, but you know, that's just how it is in a Banks household. When you in a Bel-Air, you know, you got to be big time, and he's finding out that. But anyway, Uncle Phil and Viv, as they talk about what happened at the meeting, and Phil say he's considering it, and Viv is looking kind of very like.
I was just about to say, bro, you could see the anxiety. Yes,
I think there's two things to mention here. I think the first thing is that he took the meeting, but did he tell Viv that he was going to?
When the scene of the meeting was playing, I thought the exact same thing. But I assumed they had the conversation because right in the next scene, he's back on the couch talking to her about it. So I assumed she knew the meeting was taking place. But I feel like in that and him coming back with the feedback he came back with, you see the nervousness in her face, like, dear Lord, now there's a chance he might be going to work every day in the office with his ex-jump that I don't rock with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And they even had that reassuring where he was like, no, Viv, don't worry. You the only woman I have. And he had to kind of reassure her because he know, like, I'm kind of walking in lines then right now. So.
Yeah. And again, I think that, and along with like, you kind of downplayed this meeting as to like nothing. You also said you wouldn't make no big decisions without me, but like you stepped into like a severance package here of deals and like That's a big deal. But anyway, and obviously because she's able to do so, that's going to make Aunt Viv feel some type of way. But we'll see. We got more episodes to talk about, so we'll
Michael
see how
Ealy scenario all over again.
Actually, that's entirely right. That's entirely right. Tables have turned here.
Yes.
So with that, then she goes on social media and she goes live and she just, lets it all out. Full transparency about how she feeling and whatnot. Anyway, Carlton is pissed because first of all, before Carlton's pissed, Carlton's talking to his teammate and his teammate starts to gas his head up and draw suspicion. Basically, leaves a doubt. Basically, tries to point the finger at Will, saying who would come out looking like the good guy if they did this. So leaves it thinking it was Will, but Carlton comes in the house and blame Will, and Will says like I would never do something like that, and so on. And
I feel like Carlton should know better at this point.
Absolutely. But it's an overreaction for him to have to come back down and come to the realization that he overreacted. Anywho, while this conversation happens, that brings the attention to Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv. And beyond a bunch of different things said, I think the biggest thing I took away from this is this man Will hits below the belt. There's a couple of things here because he does establish that, like, listen, the Founders Award was always Carlton's thing. Y'all never believed in me. Uncle Phil, you never wanted me to do so, but Doc believed in me. And Phil comes in, tells Aunt Viv to back off. Let me handle this. Like he man-manned him here, and he says, "We'll see how much you believe in you when I stop putting money into his account." Yeah. Which is completely whatever, but like Will says, I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
Yeah, and I think that was probably more so ego than anything. I don't think Uncle Phil, because he was like, how could you even fix your mouth to say that? And I get where he's coming from, because it's like, as a family, we've done a whole lot for you. You can't say we don't support you. And I feel Uncle Phil, but I also feel like his ego was touched because there's now this other man in the picture speaking to Will, pouring into Will in a positive way, in the same manner that Uncle Phil is trying to, but he don't seem to be able to reach him the way Doc seems to reach him. So I think it was more so a blow to the ego than anything once Doc's name came up. Because his whole body language, everything just switched when Doc's name was mentioned. What?
Yeah.
Doc. And then in that moment, all the secrets that were being kept came out. All the stuff Will was keeping to himself, the stuff Carlton was keeping to himself, the stuff Uncle Phil was keeping to himself, everything got leaked. Boom, right there in the scene. And kind of set the tone for Will and everything else after. So great scene. I loved it.
This is weird to see Uncle Phil go that way. And I was like, God, he went hard, but I also think that Uncle Phil, I mean, if you think about the continuity between the two episodes, it really doesn't exist. But I think about if you think Uncle Phil just had enough of folks trying to undermine his ways of raising Will. Because his brother came in like everything that Uncle Phil said, his brother was like, nah, you can do it this way. You can do it this way. So I think he got fed up and said, like, I'm tired of these people trying to tell me what I could do and whatnot, what you could do and whatnot. So
yeah, and it's tough. It's one of those things, because I didn't take it as Uncle Phil trying to tell him how to do it. I just took it more so as Uncle Phil trying to make sure it got done. But that's the whole thing with grown-ups, teenagers, that the communication isn't always understood, and things kind of get taken out of context or misconstrued, and then you have what you saw in that scene.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about, as we get through the rest of this episode here. We got the Jazz and Hilary date where this was a perfect date until it wasn't, because when it came down to when it was time to pay, Jazz gave his card, but it was brought back as it being declined. He was very adamant that he had the money in it, but Hilary comes in and was like, hey, just pay my card. And I know I'm like very downplaying it, but Hilary was definitely like, here's my card, pay for it. And Jazz was very much in his feelings about how this had happened. Going forward, they had a conversation about it, and things start to get changed. Real feelings starts to come out about this, where Jazz was basically like, it wasn't about that you paid, it was the fact that you didn't believe me that I had the money. And then they start to talk about how they valued each other, and Jazz comes in and says, like, I get it. You think that I look at you as a come up, and you look at me as a setback. He also throws shots about, well, you know, you don't want to be on red carpets with just some Uber driver, and you had, you know, a boyfriend who's an ex-boyfriend who's an NFL player. And I think, like, you know, and I think Hilary is basically like, so you just think like I'm some superficial person? Yeah, I do. But I think that, you know, real feelings were said, and we get them on the edge of a breakup here. Do you have any thoughts about how this played out, or siding here?
It's like 50-50. I kind of didn't see it coming, but then I kind of did see it coming. I think the most standout part to me, what stood out to me the most, was when Hilary started breaking down her observation of the situation, where she was just like, as much as you try to act like the differences don't matter and it seems like you're the only one that it actually does matter to, because, you know, you keep tripping off, or you keep making these assumptions based on what you think about me, or what you think I like, or what you think I'm gonna gravitate toward. And I guess I didn't really look at it that way from her character's point of view, but when she said it, I stopped and I was like, well, dag, is it really a Jazz thing? I don't know. I might have to go back,
Yeah, she definitely pointed and said it was his insecurities, and I don't think so. I think he had reasons to feel the way he did. I mean, the way how she kind of positioned him is definitely messed up, you know.
Yeah, so I'm like, I get where she's coming from. Maybe there's a iota of truth there, but I can't say fully like, oh yeah, that's just, you know, he's in the wrong, he's insecure. Right. It's like, you called your ex-boyfriend over. He's a NFL star. He knew nothing about his existence prior to meeting him face to face and fanning out over him. It's like, yeah, several things have happened that would cause him to feel that way. And even when he told her, and I kind of knew where that was going, when he said, I checked the account, the money's in there. I feel him. It's like, if you're gonna take a girl out and plan ahead, if nothing else, you're gonna make sure there's money in the account.
Listen, you're talking hypothetically. She said it was a perfect date and knew everything that she wanted. How would he prepare all that to not have the money?
And not have his bread together? Exactly. It don't add up. And like he said, and he made a great point. If it was your ex, oh, here we go. Can I finish? If it was your ex, I feel like you would have at least given him the benefit of the doubt and have them run the card again before you pulled your joint out. Very valid point. Very valid point.
Yeah.
So I was rooting for them. I hope this ain't the end, but
ain't looking good.
It's not looking good. And a very powerful scene, because it was like the how the characters really felt came, like even Jazz said it. Here we go. Finally, I get the truth. And then she go, oh, so you want me to tell the truth? Yeah, go ahead. Let me know.
Yeah.
And it was like, there it is. So, yeah.
All right, so we got Will and his new whip and bonding with his teammates, and they go to a little hangout spot. You know, all the kids and everybody gonna meet up there. We'll talk about more about that in a second. Frederick is looking around all the family stuff, and he seems a bit of resentment because he sees like G with Will and Carlton, and he's kind of just like, you know, my father was missing, but yet you kind of like playing father thoughts and whatnot. But you know, he's feeling missing out and whatnot. But G comes in and was like, hey, I'm gonna take you to one of my favorite English pubs. And then Frederick's like, hey, I think I'm gonna go back to London. And he says, like, this is just all too weird to me. And he was like, listen, I don't hate you and I don't know you, but maybe we should just leave it at that. Anyway, at the party, Will is there chopping it up with the boys. They're talking about, you know, recruitment and signing and whatnot. But Jackie's there and she's completely turned up and she is toxic and she is just
That's your word.
Yeah, she is just letting Will have it for no apparent reason, cursing him out and everything. We'll talk about that in a second. Carlton and Viv, and you know,
yes,
they have a good conversation about mistakes, obviously generational differences, but just letting her know, like, listen, all people see is my mistakes, is what Carlton says. And then she says, like, I know the feeling. I've been the same way. And it says, like, there is someone else feeling the same way out there. And I think they both took this moment to understand that, like, you're not alone in how you feel and what you're going through. And that's why they both reflected on using social media to
get
outreach.
in front of, right, as an outreach, as an avenue, and then also to get in front of what they know is on the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jackie at the party going hard, getting turned up. Almost gets into a fight. And then starts saying things that really have no context, but obviously are without context, but obviously mean something to her. And she's saying, like, Will, you know nothing about me. And then the basketball players are basically like, and on that note, we're out here, but hey, you got to get her home.
Take her home.
She lives with Doc. Yeah, she lives with Doc. Good luck with that. But he gets Jackie home, and Doc definitely says he appreciates her looking out, and then they have a heart-to-heart and talks about Jackie and her background and battling her demons. And she had a very a childhood with struggle that some people could probably relate to as well too. But we also know exactly why Doc stepped up and and was there for her since the beginning, and why they have that bond they do.
Bro, when they first introduced Doc, I thought he was a slime ball.
Now, I told you.
I'll be like, yo, cuz is the most stand-up dude on the whole cast.
I told you. Listen, you went that way, and then people in the comments were the same way. I said, yeah, I gotta let it play out, man. This show don't take the very traditional or routes. It tries to break the norm on what we see in television, but anyway, Will basically said, like, I wish my uncle would stop trying to control my shit. And then Will opens up to him about his trouble in Philly because he trusts his Doc. And I already know everybody's going, Doc gonna use that against him. He's gonna use it against him. Yeah. We already talked about Jazz in the car being declined and all that was being said. But anyway, Frederick is ready to leave. Then Phil comes in and really lets Frederick knows about the type of man that G is, and everything that he's been doing in the background for Frederick, that Frederick had no clue that was happening.
And I love that connect the dot moment he had, and Phil is telling him.
Yep.
And just the tip of that hat to the actor that plays Uncle Phil, because I'm watching that scene in particular. The amount of lines that were in that scene that he had to rattle off. Oh yeah, the time you were here, and then when we tried to join the street gang, and then remember when your parents didn't have no work for a year, and remember when this happened, and I'm like, dog, how was he like just firing all that up, boom, 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 boom? So I'm looking at it from like in admiration of the actor point of view, but then I'm also looking at it as the character relating to the other character, and even how Frederick kind of responded. Like Phil would say something, he was like, oh yeah, the 53rd Street. Da-da-da. Oh yeah, and they didn't have a job. Oh, and he's like jumping in, responding to the lines, and they had this whole kind of connected dot thing. I thought it was just great acting. I really, really like that scene. That stood out to me.
Yeah. Getting into the end of this episode now, we got Viv going live, and obviously she's expressing her feelings, and she's getting people attention, and people are reacting to the things she's saying. We find that Drew is talking all type of slimy in the hallway, and Will finds out and confronts him about what he's did, and basically say, like, you had it out for Carlton in the beginning, and Will's not going to have that for his cousin. Frederick does come back because he says his flight was delayed or canceled or whatever. But anyway, he comes back to play more pool, so we look like we're going to have a bonding moment between Frederick and G. And then the last thing we have is Carlton going live as he confronts the video being leaked and just decides to take the Will route. He goes real and connects with the folks, and I think he does establish the connection and the level of trust with them immediately to get off the live and do a line of coke, and that's the end.
And we knew it was coming. That was foreshadowed like 3 episodes ago. Again, I love how they do that. They give them little Easter egg tidbits, and it's just like, all right, you're gonna have to see. But there have been at least 2 to 3 references of that same little coke baggie from like episode 4, and then finally we get to see what his decision is. Yeah. So
anything else on this episode you want to talk about?
No, I think you got. I'm going through the notes. I think you covered. Yeah, I think we knocked everything out. The only, I guess, the only thing is more just a question. When Carlton was doing the live, as the scene was progressing, there was a point in the scene where they showed Lisa and what's the other guy's name? Jermaine? Drew. They show them sitting next to each other on the bleachers watching it. Lisa turns and gives him a look. She don't say nothing, but she turns and kind of gives him a look. I took that as she know it was him. What did you think?
I mean, Lisa's going to be protective of Will and Carlton at the end of the day. And even though that Lisa definitely tried to fade Will in terms of like, all right, we out in front of him with Drew, she's always going to protect them because she is very much about what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's what she was kind of looking at him to kind of see how he was going to react, because we know he's anti-Carlton, but when Carlton laid his heart out and tried to be very upfront about this, he wanted to see like, all right, now that happened, like how you acting, what you gonna respond? You know, how you gonna respond to that? And I think that was like the important thing for her to be able to kind of see like what he was gonna do. So
interesting. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I was like, yo, did she know? And just ain't saying nothing. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how the next episode plays out, because they did reveal that Will at least knows, and Will we know knows now.
Yeah,
so one in the trio knows. So I'm interested to see how that's going to carry over into the next episode.
Yep. Anyway, speaking of the next episode, we're going to end it here. Folks, come back. Episode 8. We got that review recap ready for you very shortly. Get in the comments. Let us know your thoughts about episode 7. We'll see you there very soon. Thank you for tuning in for this one.